Are you like, not sure? Are you confused? Are you feeling some kind of relief coming, some kind of space in your mind? Where are you at? Do we have thumbs up? You can put up the thumbs up with the reactions, you know. So if you're good, you can show me that you're doing good. Great. Fantastic. Wonderful. So yesterday we had questions in the chat and I couldn't answer all your questions. And when I was looking, I thought there were about 8 more questions. And when we looked into the chat that we got from Zoom, I could only find 2 questions. So we might have lost your questions somehow. I'm not sure. But if that's, please feel free to ask again. You know, it's not that I'm skipping it or I'm not wanting to go there, but I just didn't get your question. So yesterday we spoke about our own attitude towards ourselves. And when we are on a spiritual journey, it is very important that we do this with loving kindness and compassion to ourselves. This means that we're trying to find a way of interacting with ourselves that leads to happiness now and in the future, and in which we prevent causing suffering to ourselves now and in the future. Criticizing ourselves, judging ourselves, pushing ourselves, punishing ourselves, having the feeling it's not good enough, whatever we are doing, having these very high expectations of ourselves, being perfectionistic in a painful way, are all ways of relating to ourselves that are not part of a spiritual journey. And I don't know about you guys, but I know almost all of these that I just mentioned, you know, from experience, being harsh on yourself, knowing it always better, pushing myself, thinking that I should have done a little bit more than I did, never telling myself, well done, you know, you did your very best and now you can relax. You know, these if we are harsh to ourselves, it's not going to be helpful, right? Our whole self, our body, our mind are not feeling happy. And how can they open up when they're not happy? You know, when we beat ourselves up, we can see it. We beat up a dog, we beat up a child, they all go into a cramp. They all become very small. They close themselves off. They do not want to connect anymore with us. They don't want to talk to us. They do not want to open their heart to us. You know, so if we do these things with ourselves, that's what internally happens. We start to shut down. Some people then leave the spiritual journey. They say, this is not for me, you know, because it just hurts. But what really hurts is our own attitude towards ourselves. So this kind of negative minds only create more suffering. They don't bring any goodness, nothing. And they are in no way related to the nature of our mind. They are in no way related to our true nature. They are actually the things that are obscuring our true nature. Right? So we say, I want to get to my true nature, and then I'm going to push myself and I'm going to beat myself up and I'm going to punish myself if I don't work hard enough. You're never going to get to your true nature. Never. Impossible. Because the method that you're using is contradictory to the true nature. So if we want to find that true nature and connect with true nature, we need to find a method that is in line with our true nature. True? Does make sense? So what is our true nature? Our true nature is that inside ourselves, when we remove all the obscurations, there is pure happiness, pure love, radiating in all directions without discrimination. That's our true nature. So if we want to have an attitude that is aligned with our true nature, we need to find an attitude of loving kindness towards ourselves. That will resonate with our true nature. And when our attitude resonates with our true nature, it is so much easier for the mind to open up, to really see what is in that mind, where our true nature is. So treating ourselves with loving kindness, with compassion, very important. And I think that is an ongoing work. You know, we can refine that, we can deepen that. And I think the more we do that, the more we will be able to practice really on deep levels and get to real realizations. So today we're going to talk about how we got where we are right now, you know, because we are far away from our true nature, far away from home. And we have created something for ourselves that we just cannot see, that true nature. But before we go there, we'll start with settling down the mind and a little meditation, just to set up the motivation and to find our refuge. And then we go from there. Okay? So find a posture that is suitable for your meditation. A posture in which you feel relaxed. And at the same time, where you feel awake, where you feel present. If possible, make sure that you have a straight back, that your shoulders are relaxed, and that all the muscles in your body are relaxed. We like our energy to move freely through the spine and through the whole body. And by being with your awareness, with your body, you bring your mind to the present moment. Our body is always in the present moment. It is never in the past, never in the future. When the mind is in the present moment, the disturbing emotions naturally subside. And the mind calms down. Bring your awareness to your breath, observing the rising and falling of your abdomen. Just observing your breath. However you breathe is fine. Let go of all the things that have kept your mind busy today. Let go of all the things in your mind that might happen after this session, that you think might happen. The best way to be prepared for our future is when we bring all our energy into the present moment. And then try to generate a good motivation. And in Buddhism, what we try to do is we try to develop our potential for wisdom and compassion to its fullest extent. Understanding or developing our wisdom mind means that we understand reality as it is, not just intellectually, but we can see it directly. And developing our compassion means that we have a wish to free each and every sentient being from all their suffering. And not only the wish, but a kind of determination that we will make sure that we take responsibility for freeing each and every sentient being from their suffering. And so although we are beginners and we are at the beginning of a path and we are making little baby steps, that's where we're going to. And so where we are right now, that's perfectly fine. We're trying our very best to make a few baby steps. And that's good enough. That's all we can do. When we make these baby steps by thinking that whatever benefit is going to come from that, we're going to dedicate that to all sentient beings. These baby steps, they get such a power karmically and can ripen in the future in very big steps, or the capacity to be able to make very big steps. So generate a motivation like that. And then we take refuge. Refuge is like finding a safe haven so that we can achieve what we want to achieve, so that we are protected from any obstacles for achieving that. And so we have spoken about the meaning of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And that the Buddha refers to our Buddha potential in the center of our heart. And Dharma, all the actions that we do in accordance with the scriptures and all the realizations that develop from that. So when you recall the 3 objects of refuge to mind, I'm just going to read one time the refuge prayers as we do normally in Buddhism. And you can just listen. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Community. Through the creative potential of my practicing generosity and the other perfections, may I achieve the state of a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And then we can start the teachings. So we're talking about discovering our true nature. And if just from the title, we can understand that we have a nature that we are not able to see. The nature is like, I think in the first session, I spoke about that we can compare that nature with a diamond or with a precious jewel. And it is so precious because it has so much potential. But because it is covered, we cannot see it. And if nobody tells us that we have such nature, we might not even know that it is there. Right? There are people in the world that actually tell the opposite. They say, oh, you have a very bad nature. And, you know, we are sinners from the beginning and we need to improve that nature. So in Buddhism, there is nothing to improve. Your nature doesn't need any improvement. Your nature is perfect as it is. It cannot be more perfect. The nature of the mind is clean and knowing. There are no stains in that mind. Totally pure. So what obstructs us from seeing that nature? In Buddhism, we say that is ignorance. Ignorance works like a veil or like a heavy blanket. Ignorance is a net of conceptions, all kinds of thoughts, ideas, beliefs that have created who we are or that determines who we are. I'm not sure how to say that. But it is like, sometimes I have the feeling it is just sitting in front of us and we cannot see anything. Right? Or maybe you can visualize it up here and you cannot really connect with reality. So there are two types of ignorance. One is the not knowing. We cannot see it. We just cannot see it. We cannot see behind walls. We cannot see a very far distance. Lama Zopa says, we are so ignorant, we cannot even see what is going to happen in the next moment. Right? Our mind is very, very short-sighted. This short-sightedness is due to our ignorance, not being able to see, not being able to know. It is a not knowing. And so then that is just a not knowing. So you can use your intellect to develop that. You can use other techniques to develop that. But the one that is really obstructing our mind is what we call the distorted knowing. That means that we see reality, what we think is reality, in the opposite way as that it exists in actuality. So the way things exist, we see it totally opposite. Whatever exists, we see in a very distorted way. So that makes that even if we try to look where the true nature of our mind is, due to that distorted knowing, we always not being able to hit the target. We always miss it because we have this distorted knowing with us all the time. It is influences each and every moment of our consciousness. It is always there. So that makes it very difficult. And so today we're going to talk about that distorted knowing. What is that? How does that work? How come that we have this it is not just a blindness, it is much more than a blindness, you know, it is a blindness of somebody who thinks that they can see or something like that. It is, so let me try to explain. So if we think about anything that exists, you know, whether it is ourselves, whether it is people that we know, people that we don't know, whether it is things, our house, our car, anything that we have in the house, everything that exists has certain characteristics, certain qualities. For instance, when I see a cup has a shape, it has a color, it has a function. I can pour fluids in it and it will hold the fluids. It also has a nature that is impermanent, which means that it is one moment in time it came into existence and it will be here with me for a certain period of time until I drop it on the floor and I break it and then it becomes rubbish, right? And it is, the cup doesn't exist anymore. So it has an impermanent nature, not just a coarse impermanent nature, but also a subtle impermanent nature, which means that although I cannot see it, the cup changes moment to moment. Right? So these qualities are all in the cup. And so when I look at a cup, all these qualities appear to my eyes. The cup has nothing to hide. Whatever quality is in the cup comes to me. Then I perceive it in my eyes. And then what my mind does, what my conceptual mind does, it starts to organize the information that I receive. And how does it do that? By stripping away everything that is not cup. It eliminates all the qualities that are not cup. The mind makes a very simple image, which we call generic image. Or sometimes it is called a meaning generality. And that image that we have of cup, that can be called to mind in dependence on many different cups, who all have certain characteristics that fulfill for us what it means to be a cup. True? Can you follow me so far? So what appears from outside is impermanent, has color, has shape, has all kinds of parts. And then what happens in my conceptual mind is that from all these qualities, all these parts, all these causes and conditions, all these, what my mind does, it makes one image, which is very simple, which is very generic. And that image doesn't say anything about the qualities as, for instance, impermanence. This image itself is permanent by nature. It is an image that doesn't change. It doesn't change moment to moment. It doesn't change over time. It is just an image which is permanent by nature. And when that cup appears to me with many parts in it, what my mind makes out of that is one cup, an image of one thing. So of all the different parts, my mind is not interested. I make one thing, much easier to remember, right? One cup. And then that cup appears to be standing in and of itself, as if it always has been there, always will be there, as if it will never change, as if it is not depending upon anything. Right? It's just cup. Everything else is gone, standing there in and of itself, on its own. Yeah, can you make some kind of image from that? So independence on that very complex object that we see with so many qualities, the mind simplifies. not only simplifies, but an impermanent object is represented by a permanent generic image. An object that depends on many causes and conditions is represented by an image that appears to be totally independent. And something that has many parts, that exists out of many parts, appears as being just one thing. So in itself, there's nothing wrong with that. The mind organizes and simplifies, right? But then the next stage, what the mind does, the mind projects that image that we have in the mind onto the object. And then in the next moment, that image appears back to us as if it is coming from the side of the object, as if it is living in the object. So what comes back to us is like a mixture of the object itself and the image that we have in our mind. They are somehow mixed together, and we believe that the image that we created in the mind is actually living in the object. When we see a cup, I see one cup. I see one thing. I can focus on the parts of the cup, but my initial awareness goes to the fact that it is one cup. True? When we focus on the cup, it appears as if the cup is always there. You know, how did you get that cup? You know, oh, I found it in the shop. As if that cup was always in the shop. It is there. It got there in and of itself. You know? We do not see where the cup was before the shop. We do not see what the cup was before it was a cup. We do not see when the cup breaks and we throw it away. We do not contemplate where is it going, what is it going to become. Cup is just one thing, this thing. That's it, nothing else. So when we say that we see things in the opposite way as they exist in actuality, what that means is that we see impermanent objects which arise in dependence on causes and conditions, which have many qualities, which totally depend upon not just causes and conditions, but also on our mind and also on their parts, which have many parts. We see them as one independent, permanent entity. As if there is this impermanent cup, but inside there is somewhere a cupness, you know, like something that makes it a cup. Right? If somebody says that is a glass, you say, no, that is a cup, because you see a cupness there. So what is that? That cupness is the projection of our generic image. We believe it is living in the cup. But it is coming totally from the mind. Can you see that? So when there is something that is impermanent and dependent on many different things and has many parts, if we change that into something more permanent, more independent and singular, whatever we're going to expect from that cup is going to be based on the fact that we believe it is permanent, singular, and independent. So when the cup falls, you know, I'm very attached to the cup. I love the cup so much, this perfect cup. And I drop it and it breaks. I think, how is that possible? My cup is broken. How is that possible? We cannot believe it. So when you cannot believe that something breaks, you know, whether that is a cup or a relationship or your car or anything, it is because you have not reflected on the qualities of that thing or that whatever you are attached to. And so if we do not reflect on how things exist in actuality, we create false expectations. We expect something from another person or from a thing which it cannot give to us because it doesn't have these qualities. True, the cup cannot be with me everlasting, forever. Even if we have fantastic relationships, you know, nobody is going to stay with each other forever. There is always going to be a time of separation. And if you have a very good relationship, that might be at a time of death, but there's going to be a time of separation. Nothing is going to last forever. But we have somehow the expectation we will. We somehow believe we're going to last forever, right? We're not going to die. We know we're going to die, but intuitively, we feel like I'm going to live forever. Because we have this appearance of the self, which is permanent, which is not changing, which is going to be around forever. And so in dependence on that wrong belief, that wrong appearance, we think, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, you know, today I'm a little bit tired. Oh, today I prefer to do this, I'll do it tomorrow. So we postpone because we have the feeling we're going to be around forever. So we add qualities to reality that do not exist in actuality. We add the qualities of permanence. We add the quality of independence. And we add the quality of being singular. It is like when you see a person, you see one person, right? You never see the trillions of cells that are in front of you. You see one person, right? So where is that person? What is that person? Why do you see one? What makes that you see one? And that person seems to be something very different from the body and something different from the mind. But when you see it, when you see the body, you say, there is this person. And the way we think about people is in our mind is as if they do not change. Right? We see someone after 1 or 2 years and we say, oh, how nice to see you. You haven't changed at all. Right? We say you haven't changed at all to somebody who's changing moment to moment. So this is a distortion. And because of that distortion, we everything that we hear, that we see, that we taste, that we smell, that we touch, we create images in relation to that that have nothing to do with the things that we are touching and seeing and feeling. Can you see that? When we fall in love, that's one way you can see that really clearly. You know, you fall in love with someone. The moment the hormones and the nervousness and the butterflies start to become active in your body, that person becomes the most wonderful person in the world. So fantastic. and you tell your friends about this person, and they look at you and think, really? I don't see that. And you think, how can you not see that? This is a really wonderful person, really wonderful. And you feel that whole person, every aspect of that person is just perfect, fantastic. And you always want to be with that person. You want to spend every minute with that person. Right? If that person would be really that perfect, that beautiful, that wonderful, if it was really coming from the side of the person to be that, we would all see a wonderful, perfect person. Right? If we tell a friend about a person, the friend would say, oh yeah, he's fantastic. Wow, you're so lucky that he wants to be with you. But our friends can't see it, because that what we see is not present in the person. It's coming from our mind. It is our projection of the mind. And then on the basis of that projection, we create expectations. This person is going to make me happy forever. Every time I'm with that person, I feel so wonderful. And it is real, right? It is real. At least for 10 months, a little bit longer, maybe 1.5 years. It's very real. And then one morning we wake up and we think, huh? What is he or she doing? Oh, that's so agitating. And you think, did he change? But maybe you changed. Maybe something in you changed. And your rose-colored glasses are dropping. And whatever you had imputed upon the other person is now, that imputation is changing. You can see that it doesn't fit with what is there in reality. And so when we fall in love, we can see that switch where we wake up one day, right? And we can see, oh yeah, I imputed something on that person that is not really there. I projected something that is not really there. But we project something onto each and everything that exists, onto everything. We cannot see anything without that imputation, without that projection of the mind. So the same with the self, the self, our center of the universe. We see that self in a very different way than it exists in actuality. The way we perceive the self is as if it has always been there. As if there is a continuity that has never changed, that was there from the beginning. We can remember when we were little. Yeah, that is the same self, right? That was me. And we were rolling skating and we were swimming and we were the same self, which is the same self as that we project into the future. And that self might have some changes, but it is the same self. Just as when we have a car, it's my car, and sometimes I have to change the wheels, and sometimes, the brakes and whatever. Maybe even the motor, maybe I crashed the car and it needs to go for repair. I can change all the parts of the car during the period of 10 years' time. But that car is still my car. And the image that I have of it being my car doesn't change. Yeah, my car got new wheels. but it is the same car. Right? We never say, oh, I got a new car, you know, or I got a different car from the garage. It is the one that I had before, but the wheels have changed. So now it is a different car. No, we say it is the same car, but it has new wheels. And so we can change all the parts and it's still my car. Same car. I have had this car for 10 years. It's still driving really well, you know, but I've changed everything in these 10 years. We do that with ourselves too. I am the same person. Although I change and I grow up, I'm still the same person. My body is the same body, right? My body is the same body as that I had when I was very young. When I was a baby, when I was a toddler, when I was growing up, growing bigger and bigger. The body's changing all the time. And we say it's the same body. Right? This is the discrepancy between the reality, what is happening in actuality, and the mind projecting an image onto it. So that image makes that the object can change over time, but the image says it's still the same thing. The image is with that changing objects and saying it is the same thing. So when we do that with the self, when we hold on to a self that does not exist like that in actuality, and you know, the teachers, they actually say that self that we feel inside us, that we impute as being the self, you know, you all have a feeling somewhere, this is myself. True? Where is your self? Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Is it your wisdom mind? Is it your, some people say, oh, it's the observer. Some traditions say it is my higher self and not my lower self. What is your self? You know, where do you feel it? Is it just an image in your mind, or is it something more? Whatever we identify with, that self, we feel it somewhere. Lama Zopa says it like this: you cannot even find a valid base that we can call the self. You know, for instance, if I have a car, there is a valid base. The object itself is a valid base to be called car. Right? If I have a cup, then the cup that I have in my hand is a valid base to be called cup. It is not a valid base to be called microphone. It is not valid base to be called bottle. It is a cup. So everything has a base, and then there is a name and an image of that. The self, if we want to look for the valid base of the self, Lama Zopa says there is not even a valid, that what we feel is the self is not a valid base for being the self. So our self is like a mental construct, something that we make up by the mind. But it has no validity in and of itself. But it is what the whole world, our world, turns around. Everything comes from what I like and what I don't like. Where I want to go and where I don't want to go. What I want to achieve and where I want to stay away from. Everything I do evolves around the self. And from independence on that self, attachment to myself and to others arises, and aversion to myself, aspects of myself and others arises. On the basis of a distorted view of something, what we call the self, we engage in relationships. And whatever we create of that, there is also a distortion in that. It's not based on reality. It is based on what we believe reality is. And so because there is the discrepancy between what we believe our reality is and reality itself, then whatever we are doing, it's very difficult to find satisfaction. You know, even if we get the perfect whatever. After a few minutes, after 10 minutes, after a week, we say, oh, still something missing, you know, or it could have been a little bit better if, or I wish I had a little bit more. There is always this dissatisfaction that comes around the corner. Never perfect. Or we think, you know, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to be really happy. And so we set out and we finally achieve it and we are there, and where is the happiness? I'm not sure, you know, I'm not that happy. It doesn't really change my life so much. I have some more opportunity, but in terms of do I feel more happy? Not that much. So that self is what we call the root of samsara. It is the beginning of that whole net of preconceptions, of conceptions that we create that forms our reality or our view of reality, but which actually obscures us from seeing the true nature of ourselves, of reality. Yeah. And so that forms our whole, you know, we are so attached to that self and to characteristics of that self that it is very difficult to let go of that. And then there are parts of ourselves that we do not like and that we bury and that we deny and that we push away and that somehow still keep influencing our life. But whether we like parts of ourselves or do not like parts of ourselves, what all these parts have in common is that they are not in accordance with reality and therefore obstruct ourselves in seeing the nature of reality. I'm going to look if there are some questions. I can see a few questions in the chat. I hope it didn't shock you too much. Everything will be okay, you know. This is we just have to break down something that is actually not useful. We are so attached to it, but it's not helping us. It's not making us really happy. So yesterday I spoke about mixed motivation. This is one of the questions. And if I could elaborate on what it means, mixed motivation, and what is a pure motivation. So I do think, you know, mixed motivation is what I meant. You know, it's very difficult to generate a Mahayana motivation, especially if we want to do that really from a heart even if it is contrived, it's very, very difficult. So until that, we will have a kind of a mixed motivation, and it can be mixed with motivations that, for instance, want to be free of suffering just for oneself, or it can be mixed with I want to be happy in this life. You know, these mixtures are not such a problem. But if I have the feeling that you know, the way I am is not good enough, the only way that I can become good enough is if I work hard enough for sentient beings. You know, that can be harmful if you keep working like that. And so this is why we, you know, what I did yesterday is trying to show that, you know, most of us have a mixed motivation and have some kind of aversion to certain aspects in ourselves. And if we use our spiritual practice in order to get rid of, not even get rid of that aversion, if we do spiritual practice in order to change that what we don't like in ourselves, or if we do it in order so that we don't have to live that part, we can only live our good part, you know, we are actually creating a kind of split in ourselves. We are pushing certain aspects away. So this, I think, is not helpful in the long run. We can hurt ourselves by doing that. You give yourself constantly the message, you're not good enough. You know, if I want to change myself because I don't like myself, that's a kind of aggression towards myself. Right? So this we have to be careful with. Okay, I'll go to the next question. Or do we take one question from somebody wants to ask a question? If you have a question, you can put up your hand, and in the meantime, or you can think about it, I'll do the next one, which says, when you say true nature, does it mean that there are other qualities about ourselves that are less true? So tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, we will talk about what does it mean true? True, what does it mean true? True has many different connotations, and we use them all together. This is true, this is not true. So I will try to give the different connotations in the different contexts. Okay, no hands up. Okay, then I do the next one. Self as in inherent existence. What do you mean with that? Or self as in I, person. So when we talk about self, we talk about I, we talk about me. And when we refer to that self, to that me, we often refer to that inherently existent self, the one that we perceive to be inherently existent, the one that we believe to be inherently existent. For us, there is no difference between inherent existence and existence. Whatever exists, we see as existing inherently. Right? For us, they're mixed. Inherent existence means that is that projection from the mind onto the object. The object exists and we project inherent existence onto it. And then they become one thing. They appear to us as the same thing. For us, it's very difficult to see existence without inherent existence. It's like it's not possible due to our obscurations. All right, does that work? Does that help me? Does that answer your question? Kind of. Ask more if it's not clear. You want the mic? Can you give the mic to B?
Sure, Venerable, yeah. And
then after that to Neil.
Sure, yeah, of course.
I was asking that because if you say self as in inherent existence, yes, that self has no valid base. But if you saying self as in I or person, then yeah, we can talk about conventional I or person that do exist, and the basis that we impute that on is our 5 aggregate. So there is a valid base. So I was just trying to understand which self you were referring to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I was referring to the self that we feel we are, this self that we identify with. The one that we identify with is not the imputed self. Right? The self that we identify with is really existing. It's myself. It always has been there, it always will be there. It's permanent in nature. You know, that's not the conventional existing self. Right? So we will talk about the conventionally existent self also in the coming days, but we first need to identify like what is obscuring our true nature, you know, and that is the belief in the self, and that self is exaggerated. That's not just a conventionally existent self. But it's not that this, when I say that there we cannot find any valid base for that self, I do not mean to say that there is no self. We have a self, right? But not in the way that we think we have it. It doesn't exist in the way that we believe it exists. All right, okay. Neil, can you unmute Neil, please? Emma.
Neil, I'm trying to unmute.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, I can hear you.
Yeah, all right. When you were explaining about this, the self, and I was just trying to relate. And so I'll just tell you my understanding and ask you whether I'm thinking the right way, maybe. So I was just thinking that the reason, I mean, we put a perception of ourselves, which we call it self, and probably that is the reason why we are afraid of changes as well, right? Because we think, let's say, for example, we are doing this job right now, living in this house right now, and tomorrow we may not like my job, and we generally suppress it, that feeling, because we have already established the fact that liking this job, that's me. And when it changes, tomorrow we are generally afraid to be proven wrong to ourselves. And that's why we're afraid to change. But now, as you were saying, so let's say today I love cycling, and I love painting, or I love going to the sea beaches. And tomorrow I may like to go to the mountains, or I may like to just play volleyball. Now, if I personally do not try to attach these of my liking as self, because I don't know what I will discover tomorrow, or after 10 years, or after 6 months. Now, each and every of these my likings and love and the changes or the dislikings, those are me, right? I mean, it's all coming from me. So unless I reach the end point of my life, I will probably keep discovering things about me. So unless I reach the end of my life, I don't know who I am. I mean, I'll keep knowing, but that all these things are the self. So is it maybe the right way, or how is it? I was just thinking.
I don't think I can answer you straight to that. You know, the correct understanding is often coming from reflecting again and again and again how you just did. And then with that reflection, you come back tomorrow and you listen and you think, oh, no, I was mistaken there. I have to change that. And then and then you think, now I know it. She's talking about this. And then the day after tomorrow, and you think, oh, no, I'm still holding on to too much, you know? So you adjust again and again and again. And so it is not that we can say with the Dharma, oh, did I understand it correct? Yes, you know? Or, oh no, you just have to change it a little bit. If it was that easy, we would not be here, right? So it is, we are always exaggerating also in what we understand and in what we are and in how things are. And we have to, you know, we swing from one side to the other, and we swing less until we find that middle and really feel like, oh, this is what they're talking about, you know? And so I would say take a little bit of time
All right.
to figure it out. And tomorrow we will talk about ultimate reality and conventional reality. And the day after, we're going to talk about the delusions such as attachment and anger. And I see there are some questions that are related to that. Like the dissatisfaction that comes from following attachment. So we will go into that in the coming days. All right. Let's go to Sarah. Last question, and then we'll start the meditation.
Sure. Sarah, please unmute yourself. You can ask your question.
Hi. So my question was just about, in terms of discovering your true nature, it seems like, you know, we talk a lot about what it is not,
Yes.
but not what it is. And
Yes.
is it possible to say something positive? I mean, not like happy, but something that is about it, or is it only or will we only be able to say what it is not?
So tomorrow I'm going to talk about the conventional nature of reality and the ultimate nature of reality. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is the nature, what does nature mean, what is true, what is not true, what does it mean when it is not true, does it mean it doesn't exist, or, you know, how do we use that? If we just talk about the nature of reality, one of our problems is that we identify with what is not the nature of reality, right? We identify with the self, we identify with our disturbing emotions, we identify with our thinking, we identify with our personality, which is just a construct made up by the mind. We identify with all kinds of things, which is not our true nature, right? If somebody points out to you that is not your true nature, you maybe can let go. Oh, you know, that I do not have to defend that. You know, it's not something that is inherently true for me. I can let it go. And when it changes, that's fine. It's not what defines what I really am. Also, whatever is not the true nature is covering up the true nature. You know, so again, we talk about it so that you recognize, oh, I perceived that the whole time, but it's not really true. And that is not really true. And that is not really true. So you can take it away and take it away. And the more we take away, the more we can go towards then what is it? Right, but at the same time, you know, yesterday or the first day, I think I mentioned that the true nature of the mind is very, very subtle. And at the moment, we are mainly living in our coarse consciousness and physically in the coarse body, you know, so then that mind cannot perceive the true nature. I just cannot. It's impossible. To see the true nature, we have to go to subtle levels of mind. And so in order to get there, we have to first identify what is the coarse mind, and we have to be prepared to let it go. We are so attached to the things that we are seeing and hearing and, you know, perceiving with our sense organs. Sitting down and closing the eyes to meditate, you know, I will miss what is on my phone. I will miss what is going on in the world. I will miss, I just do not want to do it. Right? We're so engrossed in that outer world. So then the true nature is not there. And the mind that is engrossed in that world cannot perceive the true nature. It's impossible. So you first need to know that following that attachment is never going to bring you where you're really going to feel home and where you're really going to feel happy. And then you have to really see that with your wisdom mind to get to the place where you're willing to let go and said, okay, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to let go of all these pleasures that are presenting themselves. I'm not going to get attached to that. I'm not going to follow that. I'm going to sit down and look into a direction where nothing in me wants to go, but I know, my mind knows that I can find it there. That's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I guess it just seems like the coarse mind needs something to hold on to. And so if you can persuade your coarse mind, all of these things are not it.
Yes.
Can that stick, or is your coarse mind just going to find something else to fill the gap? You know, like
Well, if you
Or
don't
does
have
your
enough
course mind
insight-
get stronger somehow and able to live without identifying with things, you know, without having a course image of without having an image of itself? I don't know.
So what we try to do is that we stop entertaining that coarse mind, you know, living a very simple life where you're not really too much interested in achieving anything in the outside world. This kind of things make that the attachment to these things slowly starts to diminish, to decrease, and then you can connect better with the more subtle levels of mind. And then they give you so much more satisfaction that you get encouraged to let go even more and to let go even more. You know, and there are people who are in very deep concentration. That coarse mind can totally dissolve into the subtle mind. And so they don't hear anything. When you're in deep meditation, you don't hear anything. You don't see anything. You're like you're in another world, right? Because all the coarse, all the senses they somehow subside or dissolve, or however you want to say it. You know, they're not functioning at that moment. When you're in the subtle mind, they're not functioning. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll just read quickly the questions. No, I had said I'm going to copy the questions so that we don't get, that I won't lose them. And then we're going to do a meditation on the mind like the ocean. You know, if we want to get a little bit of taste of what the subtle mind is, or what the mind, the nature of the mind is, meditating on the nature on the mind as being an ocean is very nice. So make sure that you sit comfortably. Let go of whatever you just have heard. You know, listening to teachings might stir up the mind. Whether you understood something or you didn't understand it, or you got everything, it really doesn't matter. Just let it go for now. And bring your awareness to your body and to your breath. Breathe naturally. And if it is helpful, you can observe the rising and falling of your abdomen. And then think about what we said about the mind, that the mind is that which is clear and knowing. That the nature of the mind is like space. that has no characteristics of its own. It has no color, no shape. We can't touch it. Because the mind is like space, it allows qualities to arise in it. All the feelings, the thoughts, our emotions are qualities that arise in the mind. They can be positive, like love and compassion. They can be negative, such as disturbing emotions. And they can also be neutral, like sleep. Just as the nature of the mind is that which is clear and knowing, the nature of whatever arises in the mind is also clear and knowing. Whatever arises in the mind is like space. It has no substance, no color, no shape. Although whatever arises in the mind has the same nature as the mind, it is not mind itself. It is not the main mind. Attachment and anger arise in the mind and dissolve back into the mind. Although they arise in the mind, they are not the mind itself. If attachment and anger were the mind itself, they would have to stay forever in the mind. And we can see that that is not true. Attachment and anger arise in dependence on causes and conditions. They come and go. Sometimes we can have the feeling that I am an angry person, as if that anger is always there. In the moments that it is not present, not manifest, we still believe it is there. You just can't see it. So according to Buddhism, all the qualities that arise in the mind, including anger, are not inherently part of the mind. And therefore, they cannot be inherently part of who we are. Anger arises due to causes and conditions. And if we met in our life many causes and conditions that were very unpleasant, to which we reacted with aversion and anger, then we might start to believe that anger is part of us. But this is not true. When causes and conditions change, whatever arises in the mind will also be different in nature, different in quality. When you meet pleasant causes and conditions, anger will not arise. So also good qualities arise in the mind. Wisdom, compassion, concentration, diligence, mindfulness, all virtuous qualities arise in the mind. But also they are not the mind itself. They arise in the mind and dissolve back into the mind. And although they have the same nature as the mind, in that they are clear and knowing, they are not the mind itself. They arise in dependence on causes and conditions. They come and go. When we reflect on the nature of the mind, we can say that the mind is like the ocean. Whatever arises in the mind is like the waves of the ocean. Although the waves of the ocean are of the same nature as the ocean itself, their nature is water. The waves are not the ocean itself. They arise from the ocean and dissolve back into the ocean. Let that image of the ocean merge with your mind. Instead of clinging to the waves that arise from the ocean, desperately trying to control them, suppressing those that we don't like, holding on to the waves that we like, we can also rest our mind by focusing on the ocean itself. Whatever arises from the ocean is not going to change the ocean itself. Whatever arises from the ocean will naturally dissolve back into the ocean. Think about this, apply it to your mind. Visualize how we try to hold on to what is in the mind, how we try to suppress what is coming to the mind. Visualizing the mind as the ocean and seeing that we cannot control that nature. The water flows where it goes. But we can step back. Observing the waves coming and going. And then if you feel comfortable, you can even imagine that you let yourself sink to the bottom of the ocean, where it is so peaceful and quiet. Initially, you might still be aware that above you, the waves are coming and going. But as you sink deeper, you will only observe the stillness of the ocean. Surrender to that feeling, to that stillness. Stay for as long as you can. That stillness of your mind is always there. To connect with that, we need to let go of holding on to whatever thoughts and emotions arise in the mind. And the deeper you can sink to the bottom of the ocean, the more powerful your mind is. Resting in the subtle levels of the mind is very refreshing, very nourishing. Know that you can go back to this at any time. And with that in mind, we can come back. Maybe you visualize that you go back to the surface of the ocean. Or if you feel that you want to stay there, but from there you connect back with your body, that's fine too. Whatever works for you. Feel your whole body. Feel your breath. And you can move a little bit, your hands, your feet, your limbs. You come back more and more. To this moment in time. To the place where you are. And when you feel ready, you can slowly open your eyes. And now we conclude the meditation by dedicating, and not just meditation, our whole session, that all the positive energy that we have gathered or created during this session, we dedicate it to the happiness and the well-being of all sentient beings, including ourselves. Thank you so much for being here. I wish you a wonderful continuation of your day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Venerable. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and see you all tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening, good day. Bye-bye.